Welcome to Latte with a Lawyer, a podcast dedicated to bringing you the stories of some of America's most successful lawyers, figuring out what makes them tick, how they creatively solve problems, and how others aspiring to be them can follow in their footsteps.
This meeting is being recorded.
Okay, good morning, everybody. Welcome to another episode of Latte with a Lawyer. I'm your host, Jonathan Brickman. And this morning we have with us, you're from Austin, right, Karl?
Austin, Texas.
Austin, Texas. Karl Seelbach, and he has a law firm, Doyle Seelbach. Welcome to the show. Good morning.
All right, Doyle Seelbach, but that's okay. It gets mispronounced all the time, so don't feel bad about that at all.
All right, sorry. It's probably my bad Boston accent. I just spent 5 days up there, so I probably talk funny now.
No problem. I get accused of talking funny all the time. I'm originally from Northeast Texas, Henderson, Texas.
Okay. Where is Henderson, Texas? Northeast Texas, I'm trying to picture where that'd be. Like on the Arkansas border?
Not quite that far. It's close to Tyler and Longview. It's north of a town called Nacogdoches, which is where I went to college.
Okay. And now Longview, I can tell you a funny story because I actually lived in Dallas, Texas for 6 months. I was doing graduate school, and I did an internship with Texas Instruments. And I rolled into Dallas on New Year's Eve, and I meet these guys, and they take me to some country bar. I'm like a Yankee from Boston. And I stay out all night with these guys, learn how to do the two-step. And it turns out the guy is from Longview, Texas, and has a cattle ranch. He brings me out there one weekend, and we negotiate buying a steer. We cook up like this big side of beef at his family's house. It was quite an experience.
That's awesome. Well, I grew up about 20 minutes from there on a ranch, and my dad still raises cattle in Henderson, Texas. So
there you go. Yeah.
Sounds like you got to visit a ranch and you got to learn how to two-step. I mean, you're basically part Texan.
I loved it. I have to tell you, I really enjoyed my time there. It was a lot of fun. But anyway, so listen, just to start the show here, Latte with a Lawyer, tell everybody what's your morning beverage of choice? How do you get started during the day?
Okay, so coffee and I guess caffeine is sort of my guilty pleasure. So I start the day with just black coffee, which is what I'm drinking right now. And then I transition usually to a cocktail that all my team makes fun of me for drinking this. It's Coke Zero with a shot of espresso in it. It's delicious. Trust me, you should try it. And then if I'm out and about,
wow.
if I'm traveling for work or traveling for fun, I'll usually have a latte.
Excellent. Yeah, not so many people really drink a latte. If I go out, I get a soy latte now. That's my drink of choice if I go to Starbucks. No sugar, nothing. Just the soy milk and the latte. Tastes great.
Yeah, well, I'm half Norwegian, so I blame that half of my genes because they drink more coffee than just about any other country on the planet. And so anytime I'm visiting,
no kidding.
Anytime I'm visiting my family there, we have coffee in the morning, we have coffee after lunch, we have coffee and cake after dinner. It's a very coffee-centric culture. Nice.
Well, you're not eating too much cake. You look pretty trim. Maybe that's the hard work being a lawyer.
Yeah, working on it.
All right, good. So listen, tell everybody about what kind of work you do, what's your practice, what do you focus on?
Sure. Great question. So I've been an attorney now for 17 years. I started at a big firm right out of law school, Winstead, great law firm. I was in their Houston office, and then in 2008 moved to their Austin office and worked there for several years until I made partner. In 2015, one of my really good friends, Trek Doyle, and I started our own firm, Doyle Seelbach, and we had one client and one case. And so there was a lot of stress. There was a lot of sleepless nights. But, we had the fire in the belly. We were hungry. We rolled up our sleeves, worked our contact database, really, really hard, and we're able to grow it. And so we do a mixture of personal injury, primarily on the defense side. We do real estate litigation and also commercial litigation, business disputes. And so over the years, we've grown it from just the two of us to a team of 23 people. We've got 13 attorneys. We're hiring. If you know any litigation associates who are interested in moving to Austin or already live in Austin, please send them our way. And then we also have 9 paralegals as well.
Excellent. It's a big firm, so that changes the whole complexion of the firm and what you do day to day, right? Because you have to manage it now.
Yeah, I would say that sometimes I miss the days when all I had to think about were the cases I was working and the task I needed to do on those cases. You know, there's a little bit of nostalgia to kind of think back to the time when it was Trek and me and a couple of paralegals working, I don't know, 10, 15 cases, maybe 20. And we could just focus on that. So it's just different. I mean, any business owner would tell you it's different. You spend a lot of time working on the business, thinking about how to grow the business, all those types of things.
Oh, sure. Yeah, no, and you know, I've been to enough of these conferences here. There's a big focus on helping law firms really run it like a business, right? As opposed to the older days.
Yeah, and you know, we focus a lot on efficiency. We represent some big kind of household names. We work with companies like Albertson's grocery stores, all the different brands that they have in Texas, Dollar Tree and Family Dollar, Fiesta Mart, Hobby Lobby, Lowe's, McDonald's. I mean, it's the places that you shop, it's the places that you eat. Those are the types of companies that we work with quite a bit. So they expect, you know, a certain level of quality, but they also expect efficiency. So one of the things that, you know, we kind of pride ourselves on is the technology we use to run the practice. And we're always looking for ways to improve that. But, you know, we've been paperless since, you know, the early days, which helped us a lot in 2020 when COVID hit, because everybody on the team was just plug and play. All we have to do is plug in our laptop anywhere and we can access everything.
Got it. What, besides the basic sort of infrastructure stuff, what other things do you help with, you know, being better, you know, maybe getting insights, being, you know, trying cases, handling cases better? Do you use any tools for that?
What could you expand on that just a little bit? What do you mean by that?
Well, meaning, you know, maybe, well, I know you have a business too. You can talk about that, you know, for depositions, but I mean, you're taking advantage of any sort of, and there's a ton of legal tech out there now these days, right? To help with document creation, you know, managing the whole deposition process, so on and so forth.
Yeah.
What kind of things are you using?
So yeah, no, that's a great question. So, I mean, we kind of think, I like to think of it as we have our core foundation that we use to manage our practice, which it's a combination of, right, Office 365 for a lot of the very common tools. And then we use Clio, Jack Newton's company, for our practice management.
Okay.
And we've been with them since the early days, and I feel like they do a really good job helping us, you know, organize our files, manage our time, manage our billing, all the things that a law firm needs to do to be able to operate. When you start getting into the area of like preparing for trial or advising a client of the risk or exposure and kind of how to manage those things, you shift more into, you know, what are we using to get ready for trial? What are we using to analyze depositions? What are we using to analyze the exposure on a case to try to tell, you know, how much is this case worth? What should they settle it for or not settle it for? And that's really getting into the neighborhood of things like TrialPad. I've used TrialPad for some trials. I like that product a lot. I know Ian, the company's founder, great guy. We use, of course, Skribe, which I'm one of the co-founders of Skribe. We can talk about that a little bit, but that gives me the ability to really quickly and easily create video clips of my key testimony so that when I'm getting ready for a trial, or I need to create some clips for a mediation, or if I need to put some clips in a motion for summary judgment or some other briefing, I can do that just by highlighting the text, and Skribe creates a video clip of that really, really easily. And then as far as kind of managing the assessment of the case, I mean, it's a relationship game. So we have kind of two different techniques we use when we're trying to value a case. We look at verdict search information from LexisNexis and a couple of other providers that provide verdict search information. And, you know, we check with some of our kind of close friends that are not at our law firm, that either work for a third-party administrator or another firm. I mean, even some of our competitors are friendly competitors, and we'll try to get information on what is that judge doing? What is the jury pool doing in that venue? Or if it's an arbitration, what have you heard about this arbitrator? And so those are a couple of the ways that we're doing it. I'm kind of curious to get your thoughts on it, because as AI becomes more and more prevalent in every aspect of our lives, including in the practice of law, I've been looking at some ways to potentially apply that to analyzing case value and exposure. A lot of the tools that I'm seeing seem to be oriented more on the plaintiff side, like helping them put together a demand letter or something like that. I'm just curious,
Yep.
what have you seen, and are you seeing defense firms use anything, or insurance companies even use anything software powered to help them assess the value of a case?
Yeah, so I mean, I don't want to turn this into a discussion about the product that we sell, but yeah, I mean, there are tools, and I think you're referring maybe to Even Up, right, on the demand side.
Oh yeah. That's one of the companies. I met Ray recently at a conference, one of the founders there, and that was really impressive product that helps plaintiffs' attorneys put together their demand letters.
Oh yeah, it's interesting. I mean, it's offense and defense. You guys are on the defensive side, and it seems like the plaintiff side has all the tools. I mean, they use them because they're on offense, right? They're swinging for the fences, and they're trying to get the big outcome for their clients. I see less use on the defense side, which is curious to me, because it's the same. It's just the other side of the same coin.
Yeah.
But people are starting to use our platform for case valuation and just sort of testing the argument to see how it's going to resonate.
Yeah. No, I think that's great.
Particularly.
Yeah. No, I think
particularly personal injury.
I certainly wasn't trying to turn it into a commercial for your company, but I think the point that I was making is I think we're really at the tip of the iceberg on ways that software and AI and large language models are going to impact the practice of law. And, it could be, I mean, obviously there's been some big acquisitions. Casetext was acquired recently. It'll be interesting to watch what some of the big players do with the data that they already have to make it easier for attorneys who are trying to assess the value of a case and kind of educate their clients, try to mitigate their exposure in a way that's based on data and not only based on their gut or their experience.
Right.
Yeah, I'll be really curious to watch it and use the tools too. I tend to be an early adopter.
Oh, nice. Excellent. It's funny. One of the platforms that a friend of mine we've discussed about starting is like to find all the early adopters out there, because it's interesting. Like when you introduce something new, particularly for law firms, which tend to be slower adopters of new technology, you really want to find the early adopters, right? That's who you want to market your product to.
Yeah, I mean, you hit the nail on the head. The hard part is that they don't always wear name tags that say early adopter. And so,
right.
Our team on the Skribe side of the house, the software company that I co-founded, the team will often say, well, do you think that person's an early adopter? And I said, well, hopefully, maybe, unless they say certain things that make you fairly confident they're an early adopter, sometimes it can be a little bit hard to tell if they're just interested because it's shiny, or if they're truly an early adopter mentality who, even if something's not perfect or something doesn't have all of the features they want, that's okay. They're signing up early. It's like the first people to buy the iPhone. They didn't mind that it didn't have apps and it was a little bit expensive, and they're along for the ride. So yeah, you're spot on. Yeah.
Anyway, interesting. So when you say Albertsons and some of these big retail operations, I think of the classic, which maybe is part of your practice, slip and fall, right? Premises liability. Is that what you're defending mostly on the personal injury side?
Yeah, I mean, it's the full gamut. So we do general liability defense, which would be things like customers or other third parties, other vendors that are delivering something. Excuse me. But we also do a lot of work injury defense. So when the employees are hurt on the job, Texas is a little bit unique in that Texas does not require companies to subscribe to workers' compensation. So a lot of companies have essentially a private solution. They set up injury benefit plans that provide provide, at least for my clients, they provide great benefits to the injured workers. They're able to manage that system. They're able to also manage the cost of that system and kind of do their own contracting and networking to get good providers and better rates. The trade-off is if they don't subscribe to workers' comp, that means they can be sued for negligence. So that's where a firm like mine comes in and defends them. So it can be a slip and fall. It can be a lifting injury. We have the full gamut of what I would call smaller, low value cases to fatality or catastrophic injury cases.
Okay. And you sort of imply that you do a little bit of work on the plaintiff side as well, or is it mostly defense?
I have historically. In fact, one of the most interesting cases I handled and took through a trial was a plaintiff's case. It was a plaintiff's personal injury and a civil rights case. Currently, we don't have any plaintiff's cases. When we first launched the firm in 2015, you remember I said we had one client and one case. Well, we were hungry, and we were taking pretty much anything that walked in, and some of those cases were great cases on the plaintiff side, and we were proud to represent those people. But eventually, through our network and our relationships, some of those defense clients started coming in the door. And it can be hard to ride the fence and try to do both. There are some attorneys that do that, but it's pretty rare. So I'm not saying we wouldn't take a plaintiff's case. And also, we take plaintiff's cases on business dispute, commercial litigation, or real estate litigation cases. We often represent the plaintiff in those cases. But in the context of personal injury, most of our work, the vast majority, is on the defense side.
Got it. On the construction dispute, the commercial litigation, is that contingency, success-based, or is it billable?
It can be. We don't currently have any that are contingent fee, but it can be, and we're certainly open to that. If it's got to be the right case, right? A contingent fee case, you're making a bet, and that's why I have one of the reasons I have quite a bit of respect for plaintiffs' lawyers on the personal injury side is I have done it, and it takes a stomach of steel to put all that time, money, and effort into a case with no guarantee that you're going to get paid. So,
right, exactly. So, what was? I mean, you mentioned the PI case you did. Is that a case that sort of stands out as a memorable case? And what was the case about?
Yeah, actually, I mean, it really does. It was a very interesting case. And if you Google it, some articles will pop up on it. It was back in 2017, 2018, we represented a man by the name of Lawrence Falkenberry. And it was one of those cases that you kind of, when you're in law school, you hope you get to argue a case at some point in your career where you get to cite the Constitution and talk about, some of the amendments to the Constitution.
Sure.
And for me, at least so far, this was that case. It was an excessive force case. And just to tell you a little bit about it, I'll give you the high level version. Mr. Falkenberry lived in Caldwell County, Texas. His son had some issues and was prone to some emotional outbursts. And anyway, he got in an argument with his dad, Mr. Falkenberry, and he called the police on his dad, falsely claiming that his dad was abusing him. So the police rightfully showed up, 3 officers, and guns drawn, and approached Mr. Falkenberry. They did not tell him why they were there. He didn't know his son had called the police. They didn't tell him whether they had a warrant or anything. He asked them, and he failed the attitude test, is the short version of what happened. And so he pretty quickly was tackled, thrown to the ground, punched, cuffed, and taken to jail. And he was charged with a felony of assaulting the police officers. So here he is, he's sitting in jail, and he is adamant that he did not assault these police officers and that they were not being truthful about what had happened. And so he's facing charges that could put him in jail for years. So he sits in jail for almost 2 weeks, and he finally gets a hold of an attorney, and he says, look, that's not what happened. I have video. And the attorney's like, what do you mean you have video? He says, I have a surveillance video set up outside my house in the driveway, exactly where this happened, and it will show what really happened. And so the attorney went to the house, retrieved the video, and sure enough, Mr. Falkenberry was telling the truth. And so he ended up with injuries that he had to get a operation on his back. He lost his business. I mean, there was all sorts of ramifications from this for him physically and emotionally. And anyway, it turned into a lawsuit. Fast forward several years. We tried the case in Austin, Texas, federal court in front of Judge Sam Sparks. And the jury ultimately found that the officers were not justified. And kind of the message we had to the jury was, look, we're not anti-police force. I'm certainly not a person who bashes police. But the argument that we made was when a police officer arrives to someone's home, at a minimum, we expect they're going to explain why they're there, that they will only use force when it's necessary and justified, and that they'll only search your home with consent or with a warrant. And that when they go back to report it at the police station, that they will tell the truth about what happened during the event, if there was an altercation, that they'll be honest about it. And the jury ultimately agreed that in this case, Mr. Falkenberry asked why they were there. They refused to tell him. They tackled him. They punched him, which is what not only the video showed it, we managed to get the body cam mics. It wasn't cams, actually, it was body mics. And you could hear these officers talking back and forth and kind of bragging to each other about how they had taken this guy down to the ground and punched him and got him back. And it was a very interesting case. And for me, it wasn't the type of case that I had handled many times before. So I really enjoyed it.
Mm-hmm. It sounds like quite a case to remember and to be part of. So yeah, a lot of issues there.
Yeah, and Judge Sparks is he's an interesting guy. He's retired now, or maybe semi-retired. Just a very well-respected judge, very old school, very smart. And he's a by-the-book judge, right? You got to do it exactly, the way the rules say. And it was a good lesson in being a trial lawyer, being in his court and making sure you dot your I's and you cross your T's and you do it the right way.
Good. I mean, it seems like law should be by the book and by the rules, right? If anything, you don't want to bend the rules too much.
Yeah, that's true. Some judges are more lenient than others. I think speaking in general terms, federal court judges tend to be a little bit more strict or kind of by the book. The state court judges will sometimes be a little more flexible, easygoing. Again, I'm generalizing. There's always exceptions, but
sure.
It was interesting. I think the jury did the right thing. They ended up returning a verdict of about 1.4 million in damages, which Judge Sparks then remitted down because he thought it was too much. Again, I learned a lot, and it certainly was a chapter in kind of my career.
Absolutely. So let's sort of step back a little bit. So tell us how you got started. Like, how'd you become a lawyer? And
yeah, I mean, that's a great question.
Doing what you're doing.
Yeah. So I'll give you the short version. So my dad,
sure.
Wayne Seelbach, is he's retired, semi-retired. I don't think he'll ever fully retire, but he's a safety engineer. And so growing up, one of his businesses, in addition to working for oil and gas companies and other companies as kind of the head of their safety program, he also did expert witness work. So, I grew up listening to him tell me about personal injury cases where he had been hired to be the safety expert to come in and analyze, what had happened, who was potentially at fault, what could have been done to prevent the accident. And so that's really what inspired me. I mean, I remember being probably 10 years old and walking into his home office, and he handed me a deposition to read and just said, hey, read this. This is a really interesting deposition where they talk about this workplace accident. And that's part of what inspired me to become an attorney.
Interesting. Where'd you grow up? What part of Texas? Are you from Austin?
Northeast Texas, Henderson, Texas, up there close to Longview.
Oh, that's right. Yeah. Sorry.
Yeah, that's okay. By way of Norway, actually. So I was born in Houston, moved to Norway, which is where my mom was from, and lived there until about 4 or 5 years old, and then moved back to my dad's hometown of Henderson, Texas, and grew up in Henderson.
Okay. So you speak some other languages, I imagine.
It's it's funny, a little bit funny. I hope I learn it again someday. Norwegian was my first language. So if you dig up some old home videos from the early 1980s, I'm in the video speaking Norwegian as a little, 3, 4, 5-year-old. But when we moved to Texas, apparently I was a very stubborn kid. Imagine that. And I kind of refused to speak it because I didn't want to be the weird kid who spoke Norwegian. No one else speaks Norwegian in Northeast Texas. I'm sure you can imagine.
Yeah, no, I can imagine. I can't imagine that's like a hotbed of Norwegian immigration either.
Yeah.
In Texas, Northeast.
I mean, I know bits and pieces. I have two daughters, ages 12 and 7, and we're all dual citizens with Norway. And so my wife and I take the kids over to visit my aunts and uncles and cousins. We try to go once a year. It's probably on average once every 2 years. So when I'm visiting, when I'm visiting family there, I'll kind of pick it back up a little bit. I can understand bits and pieces, but just imagine it's more like the vocabulary of a 5-year-old than an adult. So,
well, they say, we should all be communicating like that anyway to simplify things so people understand. So maybe that's enough.
I will often tell my team when they're preparing, for any trial, but certainly if it's a jury trial versus an arbitration or a bench trial, don't use legalese. Like just speak plainly. Don't try to use a bunch of big words. I mean, just say it like you would tell me if we were having a coffee or if we were having a beer together.
Yep, absolutely. Well, listen, you can brush up on Duolingo or Babbel. You probably use those, I would imagine.
Yeah, for sure.
I've been teaching myself Spanish on Duolingo, so they're pretty good. Those
apps have gotten really good. And we were talking a little bit about technology earlier. One of the things that I saw just in the last, 6 months is some of them are starting to launch these conversational speech bots where you can actually practice your Spanish or whatever it is with the Duolingo, or it may have been the other one, I can't remember. There's a couple of them that compete. You can practice it with kind of AI bot where you can have a conversation, and practice your Spanish or whatever it is, just like you would if you hired a tutor.
Yeah, interesting. I mean, we're just starting this whole AI journey. It's going to accelerate. Yeah. So I think you need to embrace it. Sounds like you guys are anyway. But you can't fight it because it's coming.
Yeah, I think it's certainly going to have, to me, it's just, it's like someone's dropped kind of a pebble in the water and we're just beginning to see the initial ripples and kind of what this is going to really become. And, you kind of have you have two extremes, right? You have the people that think, and I was at a kind of a VC happy hour event, 3 or 4 months ago with the software company that I started. And there was someone there that was convinced that within 5 to 10 years, attorneys were going to be obsolete. And then I have other people in my network, attorneys, who are convinced that ChatGPT, because they've heard about the hallucination problem, it's not worth messing with. It's not going to change anything. Their job is safe. And the truth is, the reality is we're probably going to land somewhere in the middle, right? I mean, the large language models are very powerful, and yes, they do hallucinate some now, particularly when it comes to case law. But that's likely to be a solvable problem. And a lot of what we do is analyzing documents, summarizing them, trying to figure out what to ask a witness at a deposition, or how to go about summarizing what happened in a deposition or an inspection and next steps related to that. Those are all things that software is ready to do. And so I kind of view it more. I kind of view it more as a tool in my toolbox that's going to help me do a better job for my client, probably do it faster, hopefully better, and maybe less expensive too.
Yeah, I think so. I think people always get afraid and people go to the extremes, but you're right. It's just another device that we'll be able to leverage to become more efficient, just like everything else along the way.
Yeah.
So
I really believe that.
Yeah, I think so. So what do you think? I mean, at the end of you've been at this for a while. You got a nice, successful, and a big law firm. I mean, what are the traits? What do you think you need to become a successful lawyer today?
Today, okay, in 2023, I would say some of them are still the same as they've probably always been, and that is you need to be organized and you need to be really good at communication, right? When we get new clients, like the firm that we've grown from one client to over 30 corporate clients, I ask them, hey, why are you looking for a new law firm? Or what's made you want to expand, your panel of attorneys that you work with? And the number one reason, and in fact, I think it comes up every single time, is either a failure to communicate or last minute. Someone gets them draft discovery the day it's due, or someone tells them about a mediation a week before it's supposed to happen, and they haven't given them a memo recommending, what should we settle this case for. So those two are really big. Organization is important, and at least in what I do. I don't have the luxury of working on one big case. I have probably almost 30 cases that I manage for with associates and paralegals. So you have to be organized. You have to be good at keeping a calendar. But the one that's probably newer, that maybe if you'd asked me, 15 years ago, I probably wouldn't have emphasized this one quite as much, is you have to be tech savvy. I think, so, now going forward, to be successful as an attorney, I think you've got to leverage technology in your practice, not only because it will make you a better lawyer, but because clients expect it and juries expect it. They don't want to see an attorney fumbling with an iPad or a laptop at a trial. Nowadays, juries are going to roll their eyes because most of them have smartphones and know how to operate, computers and iPads and phones. And so you've got to be tech savvy. I think you've got to be, especially with things like ChatGPT, I think it is important to leverage technology, but in a responsible way. And so when I think about ChatGPT, for example, I may use it to assist me in drafting something, but I'm never going to send it out the door without reading every single line and every single word and editing and revising it. And so things like that, I think, are going to be really important in the years to come. And, we've seen it in the deposition space, where over 80% of depositions now are either fully remote or hybrid. And so being comfortable in a Zoom setting, using technology for litigators, is just becomes, it's a must have.
Yeah, got it. I agree with you. All right, well, good. Listen, just final words you want to leave with the audience about, your firm and things you're working on and the best way to connect with you.
Yeah, so I'm on Twitter and LinkedIn at my name, Karl Seelbach, K-A-R-L, and Seelbach, S-E-E-L-B-A-C-H. My team at Skribe would probably hammer me if I didn't at least mention a little bit about the software company. Again, not infomercial, just kind of personal experience.
Sure.
So I'll just maybe end with that. I started Skribe to solve problems that I was experiencing as a litigator. And so really, from where I sat, my clients were paying far too much for depositions. The cost just kept going up, up, up. It took me way too long to get a copy of my transcript and my video. And when I wanted to use video evidence like testimony, it was way too hard to create video clips. It was a hassle. I either had to hire a vendor or I had to find the paralegal or the tech person that could help me do it. And so those are really the three reasons that I started Skribe. And so Skribe provides a modern way to capture testimony. And so the cost as compared to a traditional court reporting agency is 50% less. It's half the price. You get your deposition the same day it happens. So if this was a deposition, this afternoon, you'd have it. Rough transcript, sync to the video, ready for you to search, clip, share. And it makes creating video clips just as simple as highlighting text. So you can highlight the text, and the way I'm using it at my firm is I take those clips and I put them in my client reports, I put them in my motions, I put them in my letters, and it helps build a more persuasive case. And I use it for trial prep to create kind of my page line designations and my video clips for trial. So it's been a lot of fun. You know, I love technology. So this is the chance for me to kind of marry up two things that I'm passionate about, the practice of law and technology. And so we're off to the races. I mean, we launched the product about 4 months ago, and we have more attorneys signing up every single day. And so it's a lot of fun.
Excellent. Well, you don't look too stressed out. You must be having fun.
Well, you caught me in the morning, so it's a good thing this podcast wasn't. The good thing this podcast wasn't at 4 or 5 o'clock. I'd probably look a little more stressed.
Yeah. It's funny. A well-known trial attorney said that knowing that your resources get depleted during the day, tries cases in the morning and literally eliminates all the decision making he doesn't have to make. So he maximizes the resource. I thought it was a very interesting way to think about and approach it.
Yeah, I mean, they call them trials for a reason. It is trying when you get ready for trial and you try a case. I mean, it takes a ton of energy. I mean, you basically have to put on blinders and ignore almost everything else in your life. In fact,
right.
One of the funniest things that probably happened, it's certainly top 5 in my career, is when I was trying the case I told you about earlier. We had recently purchased a ranch property in Dripping Springs, Texas, and we had about 35 goats, and they were, getting used to being on the property. And my wife didn't tell me this because she didn't want to stress me out, but we had a coyote problem, and they were attacking and killing some of these goats. And so to try to solve the problem, she hooked up with her stepdad, who's a rancher, and they went and bought a llama that was supposed to be kind of like a protective herd animal, and they would hopefully protect these goats from coyotes. And so I came home from trial one day, I think it was like day 3 or 4 from trial, and late at night, and was getting ready to do some more reading and prep for the next day. And my wife tells me, well, I bought a llama today. I was like, wait, we did what today? So that was pretty funny.
That's very funny. All right, well, listen, good stuff. Really enjoyed the conversation. And for everybody, once again, I'm going to try to pronounce your name correctly. Karl Seelbach. Did I do that right?
You got it. Yeah.
Good.
Yeah. Connect with me if you have any questions on either side of the house. Law firm questions, my firm's based in Austin, Texas, or Skribe questions, which can be used, nationwide. We have tools that help litigators and their teams nationwide. Just shoot me a message. I'd be happy to set you up with a free trial of the software, or visit with you if you have litigation you need help with in Texas, or if you just want some feedback on, judges or jury pools in Texas. I'm certainly happy to share my thoughts with plaintiff and defense lawyers alike.
Excellent. Good. And for everybody, again, this is sponsored by EmotionTrac, which is a legal tech platform. I know you like technology, and we help trial attorneys get ready for mediation and trials with our Insights platform. Thanks a lot, Karl. Good stuff. Thanks for the time.
Thanks for having me on. I really appreciate it. I enjoyed it. Bye.
You bet.